The 5th of December, 1992, is a date that will surely be indelibly etched in the memories of all Charlton supporters as the day that the Addicts finally returned to their traditional homeland in London SE7. After 7 long and bitter years in exile, Charlton are once again back where they belong, back at the Valley. In this special feature, we've pulled out all the stops to bring you exclusive, behind-the-scenes coverage of this emotion-charged landmark in Charlton history. The Valley was born of humble origins in 1919, hewn out of a derelict South London chalk pit, to become one of the finest stadia in English footballing history. In its heydays before the Second World War, the Valley could accommodate crowds well in excess of 75,000. These were Charlton's glory years, with the club firmly entrenched in the First Division and ranked as one of the most popular clubs in the country. With its enormous capacity, the Valley came to be used as the stage for many important non-footballing occasions, such as the sellout concert by rock group The Who in the early 70s. Sadly, however, the final whistle was blown on the Happy Valley on the 21st of September 1985, when financial problems forced the club into a ground-sharing deal with South London neighbours Crystal Palace. Charlton bowed out in style from their old stamping ground, beating Stoke 2-0 at the final game. Fans' favourite Robert Lee earned himself a place of honour in the Charlton history books by scoring the last goal, as the curtain came down on the Addicts' beloved home ground. Charlton's first years in exile were played out in true Roy of the Rovers fashion. Against all the odds, manager Lenny Lawrence incredibly steered the penniless club to promotion to the First Division, a position the Addicts held onto for 4 years despite zero resources. The first real steps towards a return to the Valley were taken in 1988, when Roger Olwen and Vice-Chairman Mike Norris announced that they had bought out ownership of the ground for the princely sum of £2.6 million. Olwen became club chairman the following year and announced his intention that football should once again be played at the Valley. However, he had reckoned without the Greenwich Council, who threw out Charlton's application for planning permission by 10 votes to 2. Enraged Charlton fans were quick to react, forming the Valley Party to contest 60 seats in the forthcoming local elections. The supporters' hard work and persistence paid off, with the party polling nearly 15,000 votes. The return to the Valley was on again. Work on the site began in earnest, with the 14th of September 1991 penciled in as the first game back. Unfortunately, continuing financial problems delayed matters, and the club was forced to move north of the river to take up residence as tenants of West Ham. The turning point came during the summer of 1992, when the club launched a vital new initiative, the Valley Investment Plan. The aim of the VIP scheme was to raise the remaining £1.5 million needed to reopen 3 sides of the Valley. In return for cash, fans would be entitled to free or discounted season tickets. Towards the end of the summer, with nearly £950,000 raised by the scheme, the nation's sporting media gathered at Sparrows Lane for an important announcement from Chairman Roger Olwen.
We met this morning at 9:30, and we have taken the decision to proceed with the Valley, and that will actually happen on the 5th of December, which is their first match will be against Portsmouth.
We asked Supporters Club Chairman Steve Clark for his reaction to the news.
Well, it's obviously fabulous. We're delighted that we finally, after all the months and years of pain and anguish, can go ahead.
Now, that Portsmouth game was obviously going to be all ticket, as are many others, presumably.
Yes. Well, I would hope that really from the time we get back until the time we can increase the capacity with the East Terrace and the West Stand, ultimately, that they're all going to be all ticket, because I really would hope we'd fill it every time.
Having been given the final go-ahead, work at the Valley continued at a furious pace as the contractors began a race against the clock to restore the ground to something approaching its former glory. Despite being hampered by one of the wettest autumns on record, work remained on schedule, with many Charlton supporters turning out to lend a hand. By the time of the Addicks' last game at Upton Park, the floodlights and turnstiles had been installed, along with most of the seating and the police control box. Slowly but surely, the valley was starting to look like a football ground again. With just over a week and a half to go to the big day, the Charlton squad turned out to train at the valley for the first time in order to familiarise themselves with their new home. With this training session heralding the dawn of a new era in Charlton history, Steve Dixon chatted to club director Martin Simons.
Mine, for the first time in 7 years, we've got some football at the Valley. What does that mean?
Absolutely marvellous, isn't it? Come down, beautiful, wonderful, wonderful, Steve.
What does this mean to the club?
Oh, well, this is the start of a new era for the club. I mean, we're here with there's football being played on the park. This is all systems go for the next century.
I mean, it's a good point you made. This isn't the end of the struggle, this is the beginning of the
No, this is absolutely the beginning. We've got to actually fill this ground now. We've only got capacity for 490 odd away supporters. We've got to get 7,500 Charlton supporters in this ground to make it full, even on this limited capacity. So we've got a hard job, so it's the start. It's the start of something fresh.
For groundsman Colin Powell, watching from the stands, it was a particularly poignant moment, evoking memories of his own illustrious footballing days at the Valley.
Colin, football on the pitch for the first time in 7 years. Is there any pivots?
Loads. Disaster. No, it's not. It stood out really well after all the rain, Steve. I mean, there's obviously a few little marks out there, but nothing to worry about.
I mean, it has stood up exceptionally well considering the amount of rain we've had and the fact that no one's played in it for 7 years.
Yeah, I mean, the rain we had last night, and they've gone on it today. There's not a bit of water on it. It's not even soft, really. I mean, it's remarkable, the drainage.
I mean, obviously, the players have just come down. It's the first time they've been down here. Is there anything they need to get used to that was different from when it was here before?
No, I don't think so. I mean, they're talking to the players afterwards. They're really impressed. They said, it's a really nice surface, and they're looking forward to playing on it. So.
At this time of the year, most surfaces are starting to cut up, so they're going to have the benefit of playing on a first-class pitch.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully it worked to our advantage, because we like to knock the ball around, and hopefully against Portsmouth, the pitch should be in perfect condition. So, we're keeping our fingers crossed we can get a result.
Now that Charlton's return to SE7 was finally a reality, the Addicks inevitably became the subject of intense media attention, as the opening match against Portsmouth drew ever nearer. Steve Dixon asked managers Alan Kirbishley and Steve Gritt for their reactions on returning to the Valley.
Steve, first impressions?
Terrific to be back. Great. So the place has hardly changed, but obviously it has. But it's nice to just get back and train on the pitch again and get the lads used to the environment.
It is going to be a completely different setup. It's a much more compact stadium now, isn't it?
Yes, it will be, and I think that will help with the atmosphere as well. I know the first game to sell out, I think the atmosphere that day will be unbelievable.
Alan, pleased to be back?
Yes, I mean, as soon as we came on here today, I think that you got the feeling that you're home. This is going to be our home. I'm sure the atmosphere generated on the days will be fantastic. But we're looking to the future after that. I mean, I'm hoping that it'll be the boost we need, because we're having a bit of a bad time at the moment. If we can turn a couple of results around and get ourselves back up there, I'm sure we can fill this place out after Christmas, and that's what the club needs, that's what we all need.
By the morning of the 5th of December, the Valley had undergone an almost magical transformation. Whereas just days before the ground had been to all intents and purposes a building site, the Valley was now once again a stadium the Addicks would be proud to call home. The air in SE7 fairly crackled with excited expectancy, twinged with some last-minute nerves as the finishing touches were made to the ground. All that remained was to dot the I's and cross the T's. Work continued right up to the last moment, and as Charlton's army of fans began to gather in Floyd Road, tarmac was still being laid outside the ground. Steve Dixon chatted to weary stadium manager Roy King.
10 o'clock on the morning of the first game back at the Valley for 7 years. What's still taking place, Roy?
Well, as you can see outside, we've got a bit of tarmacking going on the main entrance, and it's just general tidying up, but we're there.
What's actually happened in the last week to get us to this stage?
I can't remember, there's an awful amount of work. I mean, we've had the lads down here from probably 7 in the morning till 12 at night. Everything's happened in this last week. It's too much to explain, really, but I mean, if you'd have seen it yesterday morning, you'd have probably thought we'd never get a game on, but we did.
The transformation's been extraordinary. I mean, parts of this ground were still swampland at this time yesterday, weren't they?
Yeah, the main track in front of the West Stand and the dugouts and what have you could have gone up to your knees in mud yesterday morning, so they've done a fantastic job.
What about the volunteers? A word for them, perhaps?
Yeah, a terrific group of people. They've done wonders here. They've been working 7 in the morning, some of them till, I mean, last night finished at 12 midnight. Fabulous.
But it's been worth it.
Yeah, you could say that. It will be at 3 o'clock anyway.
Invited along to join in the celebrations were many famous faces from the Addicks Roll of Honour. Steve Dixon took time out to talk to a former Charlton star who regularly graced the Valley during the 1940s.
So with me this morning is a former Charlton legend, no less, Sailor Brown. Sailor, it's changed a lot since you were last here.
Oh, it certainly has. I was here a few months ago and I never thought the place would be ready. And it was a pleasure to come here to see the ground and particularly the pitch itself, which is a credit to everybody.
You've had a look out on the pitch this morning, of course. Do you fancy a run out on that this afternoon?
I don't know about a run out. I wouldn't mind a walk round. My days of running, I think, are over.
Can I just ask you, why did they call you Sailor?
Where I walk. I'm coming from Great Yarmouth, which used to be a big herring fishing port, and I've got a bit of a nautical walk.
Can you tell me about some of the players, the great players that you played with during your 14 years at Charlton?
Sam Bartram, of course, Harold Obbis, John Oakes, Don Welsh, Bert Turner. Oh, there's scores of them. And the earlier players, Jimmy Oakes, who was captain of the first team when I arrived at Charlton in '34, was one of the finest players that I ever had the pleasure to play with.
Must be an awful lot of memories of your time with the club, particularly with the East Terrace full as well, and some of the big crowds of those days.
Oh, well, 8,000 going to be here today. Well, you'd have lost 8,000 here a few years ago. When I first came here, I think the average gate was about 6,000, so they went a long way through the years that I spent here. I had 13 happy years, and I shall never forget them. And nobody knows how I feel standing here. The last time I stood here was when they played Stoke, when they were leaving.
Despite the many famous faces putting in an appearance, the day surely belonged to Charlton's loyal band of supporters who had bravely shrugged off so many disappointments in dogged pursuit of their goal. Our cameras joined Charlton fans en route to the Valley on an open-top bus organised by the Bromley Supporters Group. Tim Vautier asked one fan for his reactions on going back to the Valley.
Great, really emotional. You get, even at my age, you get a bit of tears in your eyes.
So what time did you wake up this morning?
Me, I was up at 6. I was up at 6 getting all the scarves and everything ready to come over and get the grandchildren. But as I say, even at my age, you still get a few tears in your eyes because it is really good to go back.
So how long have you been a supporter of Charlton?
Some 25 years now.
25 years, so you've seen a lot of changes in the club.
Lots of changes, yeah.
And what's your feeling about going back to the Valley today after 5 years of being away?
Well, we never thought it would happen. There were lots of promises and it's just marvellous, you know, going back to where we should be, really.
Right. So what was your feeling about sharing a club beforehand?
Didn't really like doing it. Didn't like going to Sellers Park. Upton Park was, the travelling was a bit of a drag, but...
Did you find that the travelling actually put you off going to the matches at all?
No, I did used to go still, but perhaps not to as many as I normally would have done.
Okay, at the moment we're joined by...
Maggie?
And?
Lisa.
Okay, how long have you been Charlton supporters?
Oh, I've been Charlton supporters about the last 10 years? Something like that, ever since I met this one.
Right. And yourself?
Oh, I don't know, at least 20 years. Ages.
Whereabouts are you from?
We're both from West Wickham in Kent.
Right. So how do you feel about going back to the Valley today?
Absolutely tremendous. We're over the moon, but we're going home and that's it.
In the early years, never thought it would happen. Yeah. And how do you feel about sharing a stadium before?
With Crystal Palace, it's absolutely beyond belief horrible. It wasn't so bad at West Ham, but coming back home is what it's all about.
Right. Okay. And the feeling around the breakfast table this morning?
Oh, just brilliant. Brilliant.
And how about the weather? It's been a really bad few days for us here, and nice sunny day for us. What do you think about that?
Well, I arranged the bus trip, and I always said it would be sunny, you see? No problem at all. I've been confident all the way through.
You had to pay for this, right, didn't you?
Yeah. Never ever rained at the Valley. It was always sunny at the Valley. We always used to win by at least 2 goals, you see?
Meanwhile, back in Floyd Road, the clock ticked down to 12 o'clock when the gates of the Valley would once again be opened to Charlton supporters. Within the ground, final preparations were taking place to ensure that the festivities went with a swing. Assistants were hard at work inflating 2,611 red and white balloons, one for each day of Charlton's exile, to be released at 5 to 3. Finally, the glorious moment had arrived as Chairman Roger Alwyn led a jubilant entourage of Charlton supporters back into the Valley for the first time in 7 years.
No, tell us he's lost the key. I'm sure we'll to find out somewhere. Right? Yeah. Right,
Yes, that's your reactions when you're back to the Valley. Absolutely fabulous. Fabulous.
After such a long absence, Charlton fans were once again able to stake their territory on their hallowed home ground.
So what are your feelings on about being back at the club today? they're indescribable, really. You know, it's like being remarried after a divorce.
And the speed in which they've managed to finish the club.
Just look at it, it's fantastic. Words to fail me, really. You know, you keep going there every now and then, but it's just incredible what they've done over the last few weeks.
And were you here for the last?
Yes, I was here for the Stoke, standing about here in the same position. Yes, and that was a never to be forgotten moment. That was, you know, tears in the eyes, and I'm feeling emotional now as it is.
Well, it's been a long time coming, but you finally made it back here. How are you feeling?
Very nervous. I just can't wait for 3 o'clock. But it's been marvellous. Well, it will be a marvellous occasion. And it's been a bad 7 years, but hopefully all that's going to be put right now.
Yeah, and the effort that everyone's put into getting the place as it is today. Are you impressed with everyone pulling together? And
No, it's been a quite extraordinary team performance. I mean, if you'd been here last night at about midnight, there were still volunteers here clearing up. And what they've managed to do over the last few weeks has been fantastic. I must admit, I also would say that the contractors have worked under very difficult conditions and have done an extremely good job. The weather in the last 3 months, of course, has been absolutely diabolical. I think it's rained every single day.
And today, hopefully, the rain will stay away. And
well, the sun's come out, and hopefully it's 3 points. But maybe that's the icing on the cake that we might not get. But let's hope for it.
At present, the Valley has a limited capacity of roughly 8,500. But such was the demand for tickets on this prestigious occasion that Charlton could have easily filled the ground many times over. For groundsman Colin Powell, this was the realization of a moment he had long awaited.
well, being back at the Valley after 7 long years, how are you feeling today?
Quite excited, really. It's been a terrible week, really, trying to get everything in order, but, you know, sort of 3 o'clock today, you can't really do any more, so can't wait to kick off now, and, you know, hopefully we can get 3 points.
And the pitch is looking wonderful this afternoon. Are you pleased with the result?
Yeah, I really am pleased with it. I mean, it's in really good condition, and, you know, I mean, obviously it hasn't been played on for quite a time, so it should be quite good, but, no, I'm pleased. It's, you know, it should be certainly a pitch you can play football on anyway.
And the team, how are you feeling about how are they feeling this afternoon?
I think they're all excited about playing here, you know. I mean, if they're not, then, you know, there's something wrong, because there's going to be a great atmosphere. There's loads of people here already, you know, and it's sort of 1 o'clock. So it's going to be a big day.
And the results?
Oh, if there's any justice, then it'll be a win, wouldn't it? But, you know, unfortunately, football's not like that. But, you know, I'm hoping we can get a good result anyway. Yeah.
Meanwhile, as the open-top bus pulled up outside the ground, celebrations were well underway in Floyd Road. Having lain quiet for so many years, the streets around the valley once again echoed to the chants of joyous football supporters. All in all, Charlton was experiencing a carnival atmosphere, the like of which has never been seen in the club's 72-year history. The day's emotional events seemed to have gone to the head of one supporter. One fan had even brought along a copy of a programme from a Charlton versus Pompey game from the glory days of the Valley. Meanwhile, the present-day programme sold over 15,000 copies, and at one stage there was a 200-yard queue outside the club shop. Back inside the ground, pre-match entertainment came courtesy of the Boys Brigade Band. With so many past Charlton heroes present, the pressure was on for the present-day side to add the icing on the cake and clinch those all-important 3 points. Meanwhile, though, it was up to the club's younger representatives to uphold the Charlton honour. As befitted this eminent occasion, the club had combed the roll of honour to invite along some Charlton past masters who had made the Valley turf their own in those bygone days. 19 representatives of the great and the good were able to attend, a contingent of household names spanning 7 decades of Charlton history. Steve Dixon introduced the legendary lineup of all-time Charlton heroes to an appreciative crowd. Derek Upton, Sailor Brown, Charlie Revel, George Green, Peter Croker, Gordon Jago, Brian Kinsey, Charlie Wright, Peter Reeves, Phil Warman, Martin Robinson, Theo Foley, Keith Peacock, Colin Powell, Mike Flanagan, with the loudest cheer of all coming for Charlton's all-time record goal scorer, Derek Hales. We were privileged to be able to talk to former Charlton manager Theo Foley.
Okay, Theo, what do you think about this afternoon's event then?
Well, it's an unbelievable experience for everybody here. I mean, I live local and I've seen the sort of change in the last couple of weeks. And to be honest, I didn't think it would happen. I didn't think it would come through. And it's fantastic for everybody here. I think the chairman and the supporters, who everybody said, wouldn't give the money, they've given the money, and it's a great credit. I think for the young people here, it's tremendous because it means that we'll have football back in the Valley, and it is a special place. Although they've altered it a bit, it's still very special.
What was the feeling around the breakfast table for you this morning?
Well, it's great. The lads are all talking about coming back here, and everybody who's been here, it's the sort of club that you want to come back to. I mean, I left here in 74. I've been back obviously a few times since, but it's very, very important that you come back into this environment, and it's a special place, and the people are special here as well. And they proved it by giving them £1 million without having anywhere to go, and I couldn't praise them enough. But I think everybody here deserves the credit.
Okay, was there anything you were particularly looking forward to this afternoon?
I'm looking forward to the game. I'm just looking forward to seeing Charlton get a result.
Yeah.
They've hit a little bit of a patch that I'm sure they'd like to come out of.
You pleased with the weather?
The weather's magnificent. You couldn't ask for more than that.
Okay.
You?
So what do you think the result will be? Or do you care?
Oh yes, I do. I'm going to go for Charlton to win. Portsmouth are quite strong, and I saw them play last week actually, and I've no doubt it'll be a very tight game. I think Charlton will win.
One of Theo's best remembered signings as Charlton manager was legendary goal hero Derek Hales.
Derek, can you sum up your feeling for this afternoon's match?
Well, today has been a lovely day up to now. I mean, a historic day. It's all for the supporters.
Pleased about the weather?
Well, it's not raining or anything like that, but today is completely about supporters. Forget the players, forget people like me, all the old players that have been introduced, forget those.
Right.
Come and go, we do. Supporters are here forever.
Can you compare this afternoon's atmosphere with the sort of the days of playing with Vanagon and Powell?
Yes, to be fair, it's very, very similar, though the pitch looks a little bit smaller. I mean, whether it is or not, I don't know, but it looks a little smaller.
Finally, the moment arrived that everyone had been waiting for. 5-3, as the teams ran out onto the pitch to the familiar strains of the Red, Red Robin.
2,632 days. It was in fact the 21st of September 1985 that Charlton Athletic last set foot onto the hallowed turf of the Valley. That day the Addicts beat Stoke City 2-0 in what we all thought was going to be the last match at the Valley. But after a 7-year struggle, the team are back at the Valley, the club is back at the Valley for an emotional and historic game against Portsmouth.